Right now, let's talk about the future of Formula One, shall we? Following the takeover by the Liberty Media Group. Joining us in the studio is F1 sponsorship and marketing expert, Zak Brown. Now, you've just announced, Zak, very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
You've just announced that you are leaving your current role at CSM Sport and Entertainment. And so, people are putting two and two together. Are they coming up with 4 or 5? What can you tell us about speculation that you are now going to join new F1 owners, Liberty Media?
It is speculation. I have chosen, after 22 years, had founded JMI, which CSM acquired, and very much looked back on my time with Lord Coe, who was my chairman, and very much enjoyed getting involved in these other sports. But at the end of the day, I'm a motor racing guy. I've got a racing car collection, and I got my racing team, and I've been in motor racing my whole life. So I took the decision with everything that's going on. I wanted to be exclusively motorsports, and that could be Formula One, that could be sports cars, that could be Indy cars, or some combination of.
So there is a little smoke with that fire.
I would love to be involved in Formula One, as I have been the last 15, 20 years, and I think I've got a lot to contribute, but there's a lot of different ways to be involved in Formula One, so I think everyone's a little ahead of themselves on in what role I'm going to play.
OK, so you say you're a motor racing fan, so let's get your opinion. What will Liberty Media and their chairman, Chase Carey, bring to Formula One, do you feel?
I think, starting with Chase, I would describe him as a global sports media expert. And, given that it is the world's largest annual sporting group, the ways he will grow that, drive new viewers, push out content in different ways, digital, social, et cetera, I think will all be great for the sport. And then Liberty, CVC owned the sport for 10 years. They're a private equity group. They're to buy it, grow it, sell it. They did it beautifully. Liberty now has bought it, and they want to grow it, and there is no selling it in the near future. So they're going to make strategic decisions that I think will be all focused on the fan, and I think that's what the sport needs to do. Focus on the fan. If you get more of them, get them younger, then you'll have more sponsors, you'll have more manufacturers, the promoters will sell more tickets, and the whole ecosystem, if you've got a growing fan base, will sort itself out.
Fan-centric F1. Sounds great. Now, so you're a fan, you're also an expert. So if I was to give you a blank sheet of paper right now and say to you, right, what would you do with Formula One? Where would you start? What would you do?
So I would start with the fan, and I would start by giving them more access to the sport. That could be both live and content-driven, television, things on your handheld that we all have in our pocket these days. So focus there. Deliver the content to the way that they want to consume that content. Right now, that's a little bit more limited, and I think Bernie has acknowledged that social media and digital is not his area of expertise, and Chase is. So I think between the two of them working together, they'll look to increase how they give content to the sport and the uniqueness of it. It's a fantastic sport. I've yet to take someone to a Grand Prix and then walk away going anything other than that was unbelievable, and I didn't know all that goes into a Grand Prix. How can we take that live experience and broadcast that through media channels?
So you see Chase and Bernie working together. You said in a partnership they can do it together. So you know him very well. How do you expect his role to evolve then under this new ownership? Well,
I think, it's early days. Liberty at this point is a minority investor, so I think it's going to take some time for everyone to understand their strengths and weaknesses. Bernie has a certain way he does things, and, my company wouldn't be as successful as it is today if it wasn't for Bernie, and I think everyone in the Formula One pit lane can make that statement. So I think it'll take time for them to look. He's built such a big sport. He's recognized he needs some support and some help. And if you look at these other major sports, the Premier League, the Olympics, et cetera, they've got pretty big teams and marketing and focus on the fans, et cetera. So I think you'll see more of that.
No, we've decided there's a little bit of smoke with the fire at the beginning. So how do you place a man like Bernie Ecclestone in the long term? And would that potentially, perhaps, one day be you?
I don't think anyone's ever going to be the new Bernie. I think you're going to see the sport grow and become some sort of management team over time. The sport's too big for any one individual. It's a big multi-billion-dollar business. So as I said earlier, I'd love to participate, as I have done, the last couple decades in the sport, and I'm very open to what that might look like.
Okay, so we got the sort of machinations of the sport done. You're a huge Formula One fan then, so I've got to ask you, who do you think will win the title and why?
Well, clearly it's going to be Lewis or Nico. I think it will go down to the last race of the year. Nico right now is on his A game. It's pretty hard to bet against.
What's changed
Lewis
for him?
I think he knows he can beat Lewis, and Singapore he beat him pretty good. I'd not seen him, normally they're nose to tail. He properly beat him there. So if I had to go and make a bet, it would be on Lewis, but I think it's going to be a close one, and I could be wrong.
Is that, though, the whole excitement? In what you've just said there, is that the essence of Formula One? You really don't know?
You don't know. I mean, I think one of the best sporting finishes in the history of sport had to be Brazil when Lewis won his first championship in '08, and Felipe Massa. I was there. I was in the McLaren garage with some of the McLaren sponsors, and Massa crosses the start-finish line as world champion, and 30 seconds later it's Lewis, and what an unbelievable result and finish that was. And the way Massa handled himself was impeccable in defeat, and we need to see more of that.
Okay, we will, I'm sure. Zach, lovely to see you. Thank you very much for
Thanks for having me on.
And Zach will certainly be tuning in, that's for sure, because up next is the Malaysia Grand Prix. That's in 2 weeks' time, and the action gets underway with practice Friday, September the 30th. So not in 2 weeks' time, this weekend, qualifying Saturday. 1st of October, race day, 6:30 in the morning. That's October the 2nd. You noticed my hesitation there, because it said 2 weeks' time, and it wasn't, and I knew it wasn't. There we go. That's this weekend.